What is Node.js?
So Express is just a part of Node. Then we can go into the request and resolution. And then we can go into JavaScript objects. So that's not actually part of Node, but it will help us store the data. And then at the end, we'll apply it to EGS. So EGS is just the backend HTML. You can think of it like that. So let's start with what is Node. Node is backend JavaScript, and it executes JS code out of the web browser and on the server side. Let me check the it enables us to change the link of the website to render different pages, and this helps us save data and create servers. So Node is actually used by Netflix, Uber, NASA. Apps like VS Code and video games are also built with Node. First, we have to store express inside a variable, and to do that, we just have to do this first line. So const express, that's the variable name, equals require express. So that enables us to be able to use express. And then after, we can store that express inside another variable, and we can just call this app. Const app equals express. And then now we can use this app, and we can just do lots of functions with it. For example, we can do app.listen. And this is a crucial part because we're going to need this in order for Node to actually run. So what is express routing? Routes respond to the user's request with a method and a path. So the path right here is /movies, and the path just means the ending of the link. So here's an example link, and at the end you can see we have /movies. So that would be considered a request. It's requesting a path called /movies, and then after it's matched with this route. And every route there's a function. So this is called an arrow function. It's the same thing as a function, except it doesn't have a name. So we can just make this arrow thing. So after the path is matched with the route, then everything inside the function runs. And rec and res are just parameters that are automatically passed in. So what is res? Res just means the resolution. And every route, there's a request, so that's the link, and there's a resolution. What's the response? So when a route is activated, the request and resolution parameters are automatically passed in. And this gives us access to different functions. So for example, res provides functions that you can use, and these include res.send. It basically makes the message appear on the page. And we're gonna look at that right now via express. That way we can use express. And then this is app.listen, and make sure that we can use it. So over here, this is the link we're looking at. And you can see at the end of the link, there's really nothing there. So that's why we only have /. That just represents if there's nothing there. And then we have a function after this. So if the path, which is / is matched with the route, and this is the entire route, then the function inside will run. So that's why you're seeing here all the movies on the page, because res.send just makes a message appear on the page. And think of the entire route, think of the path of the link like the name of the function. So if you want to call the function, you need to call the name. And in this case, it's /movies. Because it's responding to the link. And say, so this is /movies, and then after the function runs, and then the function redirects you to a different link. And this link would be /movies/new. So what this would do is you would go to a different route, which would be /movies/new, and it matches it with this route right here. And then after it just does the same thing, it runs the function, and then it should run whatever is inside here. So let me show you. That's because we stored the app variable inside express. So this will allow us to use express, and we always have to write app.get, and get will be the method, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, just write get. Then after, we can put the path name inside quotation. So we can do /movies. It can really be anything you want. Just make sure it's matched with the name. We can do function, res. So again, these are just automatically passed in. Request and resolution. And then we can put curly brackets. And then inside these curly brackets, we just do whatever we want. So we can do res dot send second row. This just shows that we hit the second row. So what we want to do right now is to redirect first. We want to redirect to a different link. And we put this inside quotations again. We want to redirect to slash move. So once it reaches this, it's going to hit this, and it's going to redirect to slash movies, which is going to hit this route. And then it's going to send second route. Yeah, so you can see that it hit the second route right now. So we need to store that somewhere and make sure it saves the data even if you reload the page. So what we would do is create an object loop. And we just start by creating it like a normal array. So we can say let movies equals just square brackets. That's like a normal array. But then inside the array, we put curly brackets. And then inside each of the curly brackets, we put properties of the objects. So if you're making movies right now, then what does every movie have? A name. So we can just make up that property called name and put a colon. And we can just say Star Wars, the name of the movie. And every movie could have a rating. And that could be 7. So that would be one object in this object loop. And an object literal is made out of multiple objects. So we can make another object here just by putting a comma to show that you're making another object. And then now we can say the name could be Adam's project. And the rating could be 1,000. So that's object literal, and it's made of 2 objects. So we want to be able to store the user created objects inside this object literal. And to do that, we need to have an EJS page. So an EJS page is basically HTML mixed with JavaScript. So it allows us to complete a lot more. I'm going to create another file here. Index.ejs. Just specify the language. And you can see you can do everything you can inside HTML, like a paragraph tag. But in order to show it, so if we run this right now, it's not going to show this. Hold on, the package is still running. I'll do this later. So we want to somehow display all of the object literals onto the page. So in order to do that, we can make a for loop. So in EJS, there's something called, this is an EJS symbol. Just do angle bracket and then %, and then equals, and then we can put the variable name inside here. The ending tag should be % and then closing a bracket. So this is a variable, and this should show on the EJS page right now. Not right now, because EJS doesn't have access to it yet. So what we would do, if we want to show every single movie inside the object literal, is we want to loop around the object literal to show all of the objects. So to do that, we would create a for loop. This is going to be a for of loop. For that's movie of movies. So a for of loop just takes an iterable, and in this case it's movies, because remember it's the movies object literal here. So it has multiple movies, and it creates a variable here, and we can just call it movie. So for each of the objects inside the movie object literal, it's going to do whatever's inside this for loop. But we can't just do it like this because we're working in EJS right now. So we have to put the EJS symbol, which is the angle bracket and %. But we don't put equal for EJS for JavaScript functions. And ending tag again. We do the same thing for the closing bracket, just to show that this is the JavaScript function. Yeah, so we have a opening tag here and a closing tag around the end bracket. So for each of the movies, what do you want to show? We want to show the name, movie.name. So this is how you would select a property in an object literal. You would just do the object literal and then dot the property name. So over here we have a property called name. So we would just select one of the objects and say dot name, and we would do the same for dot rate. Movie.name and movie.rate. So remember, we have to put the EJS symbol around each of them if we're entering a variable. So we have to put equals, and the same thing for rating. So right now, if I run this, I'm going to get an error because EJS doesn't have access to movies yet. So to do that, we need to pass it in through res.render. So res.render will render us an EJS page. It's gonna show us an EJS page like an HTML page. Because right now all we have is Node. So what we would do is we can go to this route. It's gonna hit this route first. And we can say res.render. And then we want it to show an index. So index.ejs right here. We just type in index. So that way, if it hits this row, it's gonna give us index. But if I run this, it's still gonna give me an error because I didn't connect to EJS yet. So that's over here. So I need to connect to EJS to make sure we just do the same thing like for Express, except we just replace it with EJS. And then we also want to require the path. So we just do the same thing except replace EJS with path. And then we want to require app.set views during. I'll explain what this is. So we want to join. We want to join the directory name. So the directory is just another name for a folder. So we want to join the folder name, which should be views. Oh yeah, all EJS files should be inside the folder called views, or else it won't work. So let's create a folder called views and put the index.ejs file inside views. So now every time we want to render an EJS page, it'll know to look inside the views folder. And that should be the name right here. So that way we don't have to do views/index. We can just do index. So remember, we have to require these three things: EJS, path, and we have to join the path with the folder. So if I run this right now, it should work. Oh, no, it shouldn't yet. I forgot to pass in movies object literal. So whenever you want to pass in parameters in res.render, you always have to put curly brackets. Then inside those curly brackets, you have to put what variable you want to pass in. In this case, we want to pass in movies. We would put movies here and just copy and paste this on top of the route. So now the EJS page, index.ejs, should have access to movies right here. Hopefully. There's an error here. Oh, I just forgot to put comma. So whenever you want to separate properties, you always have to put a comma. Same for this. Oh, you also have to require, so you have to go to the shell, and every time you require something, you always have to type it inside the shell. So that's kind of annoying. You just do npm, which is Node Package Manager, stands for Node Package Manager. And then that stands for install. And then you just install whatever you want to install. So in this case, I want to install EJS, because I required EJS right here. So I just press enter. And you can see it's installing for me. And now I also want to install path. So node package manager install path. And now I have those packages installed. Still getting, oh, I think, yeah, I have to put a comment here. Okay, there. Now it says no default engine was specified, so that's, we just have to specify the engine. Should be, yeah, here. So we would do app.set view engine, and we want the view engine to be set to EJS. And that should specify the engine. And now you can see that works. So we have the movies set up. We have the movies object literal on the page. We have movie.name, so that's Star Wars, and the rating. And does this for both of the movies inside the object literal. Adams Project 1000. So if we want it to look better, we can put a break back here. Yeah, now they're separated. And you can see that if you reload this, it's gonna save all the information. But we want the user to be able to add movies to this. So we would make a EJS form. So a form just allows the user to input information and add a movie. So we would create another file called new.ejs. And we should put the form inside here to allow the user to add another movie. Just start with the form tag. And let's put input type equals text. And the name should be, we just have to set the name for the input. So later knows, like the node knows what we want to put inside. So the name could be name. So this is the movie name. And we want to make another input for the rating. So this name should be called rating, and the type should be number. We want to make sure the user only types in a number for the rating. So we should have this form right here, but right now in the route, we're only showing the index page. We're not doing anything with the new.ejs. So we want to make sure that this page shows when a user clicks the button. But before we do that, every form needs an action. So where the button should submit to. So I'm going to put a button here called submit. And that should submit the movie. So we can say the action could be slash, just slash. So that should bring us back to the home page, which is here. It should bring us to this path, and then this path will show the index, which will show all the movies. So that's how we want this to work. When we click on this button, it'll bring us to the home page. And here's another thing. So I mentioned we would talk about methods later, because we're just using get right now. But now we can start using post, because we want to post a movie. You would just specify the method by writing method equals, and then the method name, which would be post. So inside forms, you can only do a post method. You can't do a get method or anything, because then Node will get confused. So now when we press submit, it should bring us to this path, and it should render this. So I'm just gonna run this right now just to make sure there's no problems. Yeah. And now we need to make a button in the index page to bring us to the new.ejs. We can call this create new movie. So now the user can press create new movie. Oh, hold on, I forgot to give this a href. Bring us to slash new. If I press on this right now, it wouldn't work. Yeah, it wouldn't do anything because it's trying to match this path /new with a route inside index.vjs, but it can't find any route that has a /new path. So instead of doing /movies, we could do /new. And now it can find a path for it to match with. And just to make sure it works, I'm going to run it again. So when I press on it, it should say second route. It should do red.set second route. Oh, and another thing we could do, instead of writing function, which should take too long, you could do an arrow function, which is just equals, and then this. Okay, so when we wanted to reach the /new path, the /new route, we wanted to render the EJS, the new.EJS page. So we just put new, and that will give us the new.EJS page with the form inside it. I'm gonna run it again. Button is still not working. I'm gonna try putting this inside a form. Oh, okay. I just forgot to put the new in the folder. That's a silly mistake. I just forgot to put this EJS in the views folder. Okay, so now I press it. Yeah, it should bring us to the new.EJS. And we can see we have this form right here. And this action should bring us to the home page again. So let's make. Trying to think of a movie. This is a weird part we stuck. Movie name, and there's a number selector. There's a train to Busan. So now when we press submit, it should bring us here again, and then it's gonna look for the method of post. Right now, all we have is get. So if I press this, it's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to create another route called app.post. App.post and then the same path. So that's why we need to do app.post and not app.get. Then we would have two exact same routes with the same method and the same path. That's why we need to do app.post. And then now we can res.render the index, and yeah, so that should work. Oh, we also need to create a new movie. We need to accept the user info and make sure that is put inside the movie's object variable. So to do that, we would have to first require something again, which would be I'll just type this myself. App.use. So app.use just means that every time it hits the root, whatever is inside these brackets will happen for every root. And then we can do express. So the express variable was created up here. Express.url encoded. I'll explain what this means later. And then bracket. So we're gonna need this in order to add things into our movie object literal. Let's run this to make sure I didn't spell anything wrong. Yeah. So we need this app.post route, and to do that we would make a new variable called const, and I can say name. So the name of the movie equals equals rec.body. So rec.body is just all the information that's stored inside this form. So we have these two. So rec.body should include the name and the number. And just to give you a better idea of what that is, I'm going to console.log res.body. And movie name. Yeah, so you can see over here, this is rec.body. It's the entire object literal. It has the name, and it has the rating, and it has the user input with it. So what if we only wanted to select the name of the movie? We would just do rec.body.name, and that should give us the user input for the name. I'll try that again. Yeah, we have movie name, which is what I inputted there. And it's the same thing for rating, and you just give us the rating. So how would we put this to use? We have the user input, we just have to put it inside the movies. We would do const name equals rec.body.name. So a separate variable for each user input equals rec.body.rating. So now we have two user inputs, and we can store that inside our object literal. So we can say movies. That's the object literal name. Dot push. That's the function for adding things inside. Dot push name and rating. So those are the two properties we want. And then just to make sure it got added in properly, we can do console.log. Create new movie. I'll press submit. And yeah, this is the entire movie object. So we have these two I created manually here. And we have the third one that I added, which is trained to Hussein and the rating right here. So we found out how to add these movies inside. Now we need to find out how to show them on the page, because right now it's not showing it. Oh, and there's an easier way to do this. So instead of storing it into two separate variables, we can do something called destructuring. So we can say const curly brackets name rating. So just whatever the variable name we want is equal to rec.body, and that's it. This does the same thing as these two lines right here. That's because it has a variable name, and then at the end it's going to do rec.body.name, and it's going to do the same thing for rating, rec.body.rating, and it stores them both inside these two variables. So that's just the faster way to do it. And now you can create a new movie. So it's added into the object literal. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I forgot to put curly brackets here. That's just to specify that it's an object and not just random properties. So let's try it again. And yeah, now it should show here. So that's the user input, and you can see that it saves the data. So I'm gonna open this. Oh wait, you can't see the screen. But yeah, the point is, if you try to reload it, it will save the data. I'll just try to create another movie. I should probably do this. And yeah, it has the rating and the name. If we wanted to make it look better, we can just put this name and rating. Put two breaks at the end, and one break to separate the two properties. So it should look like this. So now we just have one last thing to do, and that's called rec.params. So right now we have rec.body. We also need rec.params, which should. I'm going to create a new separate route just to teach this. /test, and then /for. So in this name, we can also give paths parameters, and I'm going to call this parameter search. So now the path is waiting for a parameter to be passed in. So we can just do search / be the name of the parameter. And instead of rendering, we can send. So now I'm going to reshare my screen. I don't know if you can see the link, but if I go to /test, that should be the end of the link. /test and then / and then right now I just input something random, and that should pass into their parameters. I just can't get it. Okay, well, we're running low on time right now, and I still want to do a review. So if we have time, we can come back to this. Okay, so what we learned so far is that inside Node, we can require things, and every time you require a thing, you have to type it inside the shell. So for example, we want to require express. We would have to, actually Replit does this for you, it requires it for you, but anything other than express, like EJS and path, you need to type in npm, node package manager, and then what you want to require. Then you just press enter, and you have to do that all inside the shell. So in express, we can save it inside the app variable, and we can use the app variable to make group routes. So after the route, you just put the method, and if it's nothing special, you just do app.get, and after that, you can put the path. So the path is just the end of the link. If there's no end, we just put /. So the path is just matched with the route that has the path name, and then after arrow function is based, and two automatic parameters are passed in, and then we can have one of them is res, and res can do multiple things like render something, which will show an EJS page. And in this case, we want to show the index.ejs, and then we want to pass in the movies object literal. So to pass in parameters into EJS pages, you would just put a comma and then curly brackets. So now we can pass in the movie object literal. It goes to the index.ejs, and then now the index.ejs has access to movies right here. If we didn't pass it in, it would get an error because it wouldn't know what movies was. Then we have a for loop, which just creates a variable for each of the object literals and just does everything here, displays the name and the rating of it. Then we can have a button called create new movie. So this button will bring us to /new, and that's another route in index.js. So /new, it'll just match it again. This is the route, app.get /new, and now it should res.render new, and that's the EJS page. So remember, if you wanted to look inside the views folder, you have to require path and then set it so that it looks inside the view folder. So now you can res.render new.ejs, and then it gives us this form. We have a name. So Node selects the variables by the name. Name equals name equals rating. Then once we press submit, it should bring us to an action with /. But this time it's looking for a method with post. So you can see there's a path called / here, but it doesn't have a method of post. So it would go to this route instead. And then this is where it stores all the properties of the object literal inside of the object inside the object literal. We do that by separating the rect.body into two variables, or into how many variables the input has. So rect.body just has all the user input. If there's more inputs, then it would include that too. And then .name, it just has the name of the input. So remember we put the name here. And then it also does .rate. So that's how it selects the user input. And then it stores those inside a variable. And then it uses those two variables. And then it pushes it inside the movie's object literal. Remember to put curly brackets here to show that it's an object. And it pushes the name and the rating. And then we can render index. And at the end, we can pass in movies again. So the reason it saves this right here is because it was already pushed inside the movie's object literal. So it was pushed inside, and then it was passed in again. Then it should have the full object literal, but this time it's including what the user input. So now we actually have all the information to make a comment app. Instead of doing name and rating, you can do username and comment.